Greetings and salutations. It's Zabe Abdelhadi with A Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. You can also become a bitter pill at patreon.com/The Bitter Truth, where you can get some fabulous swag that will make your life better. And, of course, we appreciate the support of the show. Today, we've got a guest, a friend of the show. I like to think so anyway. He's been on before. There you go. Thank you. Steve Kling, he was a state senate candidate for District 25 last year. Narrowly lost. And that's because, well, we'll talk about that as the show goes along. But we've got a lot to talk about today. Steve, how the hell are you, man?
I'm doing great. Hey, it's good to be back here.
Hey, man. Thanks for coming. It makes me feel like I'm liked. That's good.
Tolerated.
Tolerated. I know I'm tolerated. I'm like broccoli and or a fungus. So, but hey, man. But really quick before we jump in, like, are you thinking about running this year? What are you thinking about doing in 20?
Well, I'm not running this year, but an interesting anecdote about that we can get into later. But no, I'm not going to run this year. 2022 is a possibility. Okay. Let's see how things go.
You looking at like a rep office or congressional seat? Or what are you looking at?
Well, my run in 2018 was really a confluence of events, being at the right place and the right time in history. 2022, I would imagine, would be similar. Sure. I didn't see a need to run this time because of where I live. I have people that represent my interests. Oh,
there you go. Okay. Well, that's fair.
It's that simple.
Yeah, no. A few years back, I was toying with the idea of assembly, and I studied the person that was in my district. I was like, she's actually pretty cool. Like she does stuff with kids, and she's actually really cool, and she actually votes like a real person, not like some corporate tool. So I'm like, I don't need to run.
Yeah, I mean, if your ego doesn't make you feel compelled and entitled to some position, then if you have somebody doing what you want them to do, then good.
And I also didn't feel like answering drug questions. Because I would steal that Bill Hicks joke just to be a dick and ruin the whole campaign. They would say, have you tried drugs? I'm like, that question is beneath you. And because of my use of hallucinogens, I see through you. And that would be the end of the campaign. All these people work hard.
I worked in a Bill Hicks joke or two on the trail.
It's good for you.
Yeah.
It's good for you. And these people don't know what hit them because that to them, that's like intellectual. Like, oh my God, that's like really smart stuff. It's like,
now, I did have an idea of running just sort of almost as a joke, running as a Republican, but on the exact platform I ran as a Democrat on.
And see if they tell the difference.
Yeah.
They won't know.
Well, what I'm saying, I would like to think they would tell the difference between my platform and the Republican one. But what would be interesting is going in front of all of those Republican clubs and saying what I'm for and seeing how many are actually for it when it's not coming from a Democrat.
I promise you'd get 80% buy-in.
That was the idea.
Yeah. Well, last summer I saw a Fox News poll. The 70% of those respondents were in favor of Medicare for all.
Yeah.
So it's like when people are starting to kind of get a whiff. Excuse me. That capitalism for the sake of capitalism, unfettered. You're not going to replace the great God government with the great God corporate America, because those guys are every bit as corrupt as the government. Even worse, because they're in for a profit. Government just needs to break even. They just need to not lose money. Right? Corporations, they're about making a killing, which is fine if you want to make a profit. When you get into gouging, it's a whole nother story.
Well, and that plays to the against the old axiom that if you hand it over and privatize, that it'll be run more efficiently. Well, it may be run actually more efficiently, but the profits don't get pumped back into the system. No, and that's the part they always leave out.
Yeah, and they come at the expense of what? Like privatized prisons, right?
Well, at the expense of, in that case, human freedom.
You're right, lives and everything else, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but hey, man. So let's jump right in. I know you're chomping at the bit to rap about a couple things, and I've been doing some tinking myself. So yeah, let's just
I've always got some shit to talk about.
Yeah.
But never short of opinions, kind of an individual.
Today's show, this guy came in. He's running for Congress up in District 17, and libertarian guy, and real kind of nice, quiet guy. And I thought it was gonna be kind of a tough hour. Yeah, it blazed right through it. The guy, he was really nice too. So I had a hard time pushing back on a lot of things I did, and then I kind of felt like a dick. So then I'd back off, and then I'd push back again. And he was just a really nice, sharp, cool guy. And so anyway, I just kind of felt like I should have, and I had it written down, and I was going to say it. Then he'd say something really nice. Yeah, I'm like I feel like a dickhead.
That's how they get you.
Yeah,
I know. I mean, it worked for me. You try to, and you can be disarming. It's not fake.
No, he's a good dude. And the thing is, we agreed on about maybe half his deal. And so the stuff we'd argue about, and it was good. It was healthy stuff. I mean, so far a year and a half in the show, but over 80 shows in, never call anybody a name, and no one's ever hung up or walk out. So I'm doing okay.
Well, so in the interest of, a good healthy conflict, should I be more of a dick?
If you want to, if you want to be.
I mean, I'm not running for anything anymore.
Right. You don't need to kiss the babies. And by the way,
that's right.
2 years from now, they'll forget all about it.
Oh, they
they even hear this,
they could find it,
right?
But yeah, sure.
So, man, let's jump in because I know you had some Ukraine Gate stuff on your. Let's talk a little bit, man. What's going on?
Well, I just think as I was mentioning on the way in here, having a House Intelligence Committee impeachment hearings for a political junkie is like Oktoberfest, right?
Sure.
So I've been watching that pretty intently. The thing that I just keep coming back to, though, is just this disingenuous arguments that are being made, even and to be very partisan about it, by GOP ranking members and people that are sitting there behind on the dais, making clear Russian intelligence propaganda arguments against what's going on there, against their own Senate committee findings that Russia did, in fact, not only interfere with our elections, but did so in all 50 states.
See, that's bullshit, though. Hang on one second. Hang on one second. Hang on.
Here we go. The healthy conflict.
Yeah, this is the healthy conflict. First of all, there's never been any proof that the Russian government did anything. What happened was, let's just say, for example, a couple of mobsters? There's never been any proof of a conspiracy between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. Still, Robert Mueller sat like a doddering old man. Well, I watched that hearing.
First of all, is that what I said?
You said there's no that Russia was involved in all 50 states,
interfering in the elections in all 50 states.
Okay, spending $100,000 on Facebook and $4,000 at Google. That's a fact, by the way, that Jerry Nadler so brilliantly got the president of Google to admit. You did an investigation? Yes, sir. And then what did that investigation find? They spent $4,700. Excuse me? Yeah, the Russians spent $4,700 at Google and $100,000 on Facebook. So how does that going to compete with a $2 billion campaign?
Well, first of all, that's not entirely true. I mean, they may have found specific government agencies that spent that, but did they find them all? There are people now in prison after
nothing to do with the election.
No, that's not true. Roger Stone just went to jail
for talking a bunch of mad shit and had nothing to do with the election.
But it did.
It didn't.
No, it had to do with the WikiLeaks, the DNC WikiLeaks.
Ah, okay. The DNC WikiLeaks that no one can prove that the Russians hacked.
Oh, I don't know where you get your information. I mean, it seems very clear.
Wired Magazine, Bill Binney, former NSA director who had the FBI bust into his fucking house 5 years ago and arrest him because he's a whistleblower. And he actually conducted tests with his former intelligence officer buddies.
So what's your take on the IRA then? Not the Irish Republican Army, the Internet Research Agency. I mean, they have an address. They have
they got a bunch of fucking trolls who put up memes of Bernie arm wrestling Jesus in his thong. I mean, like what the hell is that to do with? Let me put this in very simple terms that I think was what happened.
Okay.
That the Democrats, and I'm going to be nonpartisan because I hate both parties. With the Bernie White,
I know,
and so
I think we should talk about that too. But
okay, well, I'm not going to get help for it. But my point is this: I'm not going to get I'm going to sit on a couch. Well, doctor, it goes back to my mother. But here's the thing, though. It's like Hillary Clinton cheated the guy who could beat the orange one. And that's a fact. 27 states to 23. When 4 of them were superdelegated.
The DNC, the DCCC.
Every county in West Virginia voted for Bernie Sanders. They flipped it to Hillary. Hawaii, Michigan, Minnesota, all went for Sanders. They flipped it to Hillary, okay? Now, the stakes would have been 27-23 Bernie. And the 14 states that were under investigation for fraud, which the results were going to be announced in December of 2017. The fuck it was going to do us any good.
Yeah, there were ones like California where they boxed up. I mean, there were allegations. There were allegations.
And they flipped a coin in Iowa. So, but you had 4 states that were super delegated. So you went out of your way to cheat the guy who could beat the orange one. You got two of the most hated people in the United States. One of the most flawed candidates that the oldest party in this country has ever run, Hillary Clinton. Baggage laden, Russian laden, Arab laden. She's everything laden. You come out of the White House $10 million in debt because the Clinton Foundation, if you remember, was founded to help Bill Clinton's legal fees for the Lewinsky scandal. 16 years later, they're worth $250 million. That's good nonprofit work. The highest paid CEO in the country for a nonprofit, the Red Cross, he makes $800,000 a year. He's not worth $250 million. And so to sit there and not call the elephant in the room, with all of this is showing me that there's been no self-reflection. There's been no There's been no autopsy. The DNC did no autopsy. In fact, they rigged the rules again.
Well, I mean, you're going into some things. There's a lot. You're giving me a lot to unpack here and a lot to answer.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll shut up.
This started with, discussing the hearings, right?
Okay.
And so we're
Which I think is an extension of what you said, but continue.
I mean, I'll try to bring it all the way around if I can, sure. Just from my perspective on that, even including talking about Clinton and the 2016 race, if you like, but the allegations that Ukraine had anything to do with this are known by all intelligence communities. All 17 agencies are.
By the way, the 17 agencies get winnowed down to one really quick. We've done this route before. 17 got narrowed down to 3, which got narrowed down to the NSA. And if the NSA don't know, it doesn't exist.
Okay, but again, you're going against the consensus.
The consensus is bullshit. The consensus is a corporate media conglomerate that's telling me the 17 agencies that also said that Russia was involved in the 2016 election?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I know a lot of people in the intelligence agencies from my work.
Okay.
And I trust them, and I speak to them.
Okay.
And they tell me everything that they can tell me. They have no reason not to.
They're allowed to.
There's not a course. From those perspective of those conversations, there is no sort of corporate conspiracy going on there. There are a lot of conspiracies, but there's no corporate conspiracy from the perspective of my personal relationships with people who have, dealings with or are within the intelligence communities that are telling me the consensus is, Russia did all these different things, including the Internet Research Agency, including, probing attacks on things. But I'm more specifically talking about there's a 3-part, two parts have already been published, but one part we're waiting to be published. There's a 3-part investigation within the Senate, the GOP-run Senate, that also is debunking the GOP talking points that are coming from the members of that intelligence community. Sure. They're saying that, maybe Ukraine did this. Well, that's a conspiracy theory, but it's beyond a conspiracy theory. It is a theory propagated by a foreign intelligence service with the intention of divisive, creating division.
Okay. So
there's that. Now, if you want to get into like Bernie Sanders and Clinton, I was a Bernie supporter. I was sickened by what I saw by the Debbie Wasserman Schultz run DNC and the rigged game. I am, but
see, here's the thing: that campaign finance fraud. When you ran for office last year as a Democrat, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So people that contributed to your campaign, right, were contributing to Steve Kling to run for state senate in Texas. Why should any of that money get siphoned off into the main campaign? Hillary Clinton had a $2 billion war chest, a 57-2 approval rating amongst newspapers in this country. She had the entire media in her back pocket. She lost because she's flawed. She lost because all she could do, and this is where there's no reflection. And this Ukraine Gate shit goes right back to last year when Nancy Pelosi had the opportunity to impeach Donald Trump on real crimes, the emoluments clause, and actual maybe war crimes, and didn't do it because, in her words, it wasn't politically viable. It's politically viable now? If it's politically viable now, you know where Trump fucked up? He fucked up because he didn't get Bill Barr to make that goddamn call to Ukraine. Asking for an investigation on a guy who did the shit, got his son a $50,000 a month job because Hunter Biden was not Beau Biden. Beau Biden was a former Attorney General of Delaware, okay? Sharp guy, probably a next president of the United States. He probably could have conceivably done it.
Yeah, he was a vet.
Right. Whereas Hunter Biden got kicked out of the Navy for doing too much blow. And if you're getting kicked out of the Navy for doing how much blow are you possibly doing to get kicked out of the Navy for? His dad hooked him up with Burisma. He admitted it and bragged about it in a press conference.
Well,
okay, that is complete.
The press conference that I saw Hunter Biden in, he actually admitted.
No, I'm talking about Joe Biden admitting.
Oh, Joe Biden. Okay.
Yeah, admitting that he was threatening to withhold, he's going to get back on Air Force II, withholding $1 billion in Ukrainian aid unless they fire the top cop that day. He was bragging about it at a CFR press conference. You should look it up. It's all over YouTube. It's like a whole minute and a half. He's bragging about it. And then the president goes, "You don't have the authority to do that." Barack Obama, he goes, "Yeah, I got it from Barack Obama. And I'm going to get on the plane at the end of the day, and we're not going to withhold the aid if I don't have an answer by the end of the day." By the end of the day, they fired the attorney general. And to have an investigation asked for is not the same thing as asking to have a rigged election. And I hate Donald Trump. He's a piece of shit. But all this is another just magic trick to keep us off the fact that the Democrats have no policy. They got no policy except for Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Everyone's running on the same bullshit talking points. Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris. They're doing the same shit. And then we're going to be surprised and crying in our soup when Cheeto Jesus gets another 4 years.
Well, I don't know where you say when you say they don't have a policy. I mean, there's a clear platform.
What is it? Besides being nice to people and Trump is mean, what is the policy? I'm dying.
Well, I'll back off that statement a little bit, okay, and say that there's a clear platform from the progressive camp
who are getting their asses kissed until they get fucked again, and then they get their finger wagged in their faces, going, "You better vote for blue because Trump mean."
Yeah, well, there's that dynamic, but you'd be a great marriage counselor, by the way. Hey, there's that dynamic. Well, I do try to be very fair, and so if I don't know something for sure, I'm going to use terms like allegation.
So
and stuff
enlighten
like
me. Tell me what the Democratic platform is besides like Tulsi and Bernie. What is the party platform?
Well, and there's going to be arguments within each camp about who actually is pure enough when it comes to Medicare for all, or who's pure enough when it comes for a living wage, or who's pure enough for, whichever topic. Okay, but like there's some specific topics here, and then one is Medicare for all. Is you're either on or you're not with it. Yeah. But look at that stage. A majority of them have signed on to some kind of Medicare for all. I mean, and again, from the Bernie Sanders all the way to Elizabeth Warren's incremental, which is the one thing that disappoints me about her is that look, you got to go all the way. What frustrates with me about her and all the other candidates is they don't talk about it from the pro-business perspective. Right. We talked about it on the show last time. Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
Having said that, there are clear stated goals there. So, like, to not have a policy on what?
They spent an hour the other night on the debate. The first hour was Trump bad.
Whose fault is that? Is that the
shitty moderators at MSNBC owned by Comcast and the Washington Post, who's owned by Jeff Bezos? Yeah. So Jeff Bezos owns the goddamn Washington Post.
Yes, he does. And so we get around that with social media. We get around that with by having the capability of broadcasting our own message and taking control of our own medium, just like you do. However, that has a tendency to silo because it's not broadcast media. It gets people into their silo. So how do you?
So when Clinton signed the Communications Act 1996 and had antitrust regulation not apply to the communications business anymore, that's where we are now, where 5 companies own everything.
Yeah, they went back and rebuilt Nobel, basically. To some degree, but worse.
Yeah, and we never got rid of the antitrust laws. None of those were repealed. The very thing that Teddy Roosevelt started is still here. Give you an example. In Jimmy Carter's administration, he was only president 4 years. You know how many antitrust investigations his Justice Department launched? 70. Flash forward to W. You know how many in 2 terms? 6. Obama, 2 terms, 4. The laws are there, but we're getting too bought out. We turned it into a revolving door where Eric Holder cannot prosecute HSBC Bank and get a job at Covington Burling where he was at before for $1 million a year. Now, after he left the State Department or the Justice Department, he gets a job for $4 million a year because he didn't prosecute the client of HSBC Bank, or Covington Burling rather, which was HSBC Bank.
Well, ultimately, I mean, if you're going to sit here and tell me that politics have been corporatized in the United States of America, you're going to get a willing audience. I mean, I agree.
But my point is to pretend that the Democrats don't have a platform is disingenuous. They don't have a platform that's going to help working people.
I think it's really, really important that I at least try to make this one point.
Please.
And that is there are 2 Democratic parties right now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And there is an insurgent left Democratic Party that is not radical. It is trying to pull the Democratic Party back to its roots of representing, labor.
I agree with that.
And representing people who don't otherwise have a voice. That was lost. Some could say that it was lost in, Bill Clinton was the first sort of corporate Democrat.
Late 80s.
I would say that that's probably accurate. I would say that metamorphosis had been happening prior to that.
Sure.
But that he represented the first elected president that really represented corporate interests there.
That's right.
I'll drop this one on you. This is kind of fun.
Sure, please.
Okay. Yeah. About 3 days ago, I was approached by the D-Trip, the DCCC. Right.
The very same guys who didn't play ball with you before.
Right. And they of course, my wife and I wonder what the hell they're trying to get me to run for because they'd left a voice message for me. And so it turns out I called them back and they said, yeah, we were interested to see if you were interested in running for Congressional District 25, which is where I live, which is right now being contested in a primary between Julie Oliver, who's a friend of mine and ran for the same seat in 2018 in the general, and who I have a lot of affection for, having run, shoulder to shoulder, a fellow brother, sister in arms, as it were.
You were running for state senate. She was running for Congress.
That's right. And so there's a special bond between myself between all of the different candidates who ran in 2018.
Okay.
Because we're a different breed. We really are. And so when you see me get defensive about all Democrats and Republicans are all the same, they're not. A lot of us stood up and stopped what we were doing, quit our jobs, and are in the process of working very, very hard to take a party back for people.
Right.
And so Julie's there. There is someone, DSA's kind of brought a candidate up to run, Heidi Sloan, who's running against her in the primary. Everything I've heard about Heidi is positive in terms of
Congress,
and she's coming out of DSA, so she's coming from a group that is at the very least genuinely interested in pushing forward workers' rights and people's rights. Right? How can you fault that? Right. So, but. Of course, I'm on Team Julie. I mean, Julie's one of my good friends. I go block walking for Julie. Kelsey and I are going to max out donors.
And I apologize for my ignorance. She did not win last fall.
She didn't win, but she's yet another one of these cases like Mike Siegel and others that have brought these untouchable races that the D-Trip would never even look at.
Right.
And give some credit to.
And I don't say she didn't win in a pejorative. No. I mean, because they didn't support her.
They didn't. Well. Yes.
Right.
Okay. I mean, you could say that about a lot of different races where the naysayers at the party, the party apparatus said these can't be won, and they had written them off a long time ago.
Right.
But people like her, like myself, like Mike Collier, folks who ran for lieutenant governor, we didn't run just to win. We ran because it's the right thing to do. You ran because it's worth the fight. And that is the difference between someone who works in Washington, D.C. And comes down here to involve themselves in our local and regional politics and us. We're the heart. And, so to find out that they are not, it was a unique situation because
they want to primary you against her.
They wanted me to go into a primary against one of my dear friends, and which speaks to how little they know about relationships and the network that's already established. Two, they obviously didn't do their homework on me. I'm a flaming progressive. I refuse corporate money.
Right. And
so I told them, hey, no thanks. I said, you guys got to know she's a really good friend of mine, but I was curious. Are there any other races that you are looking to try to run? Because I wanted to find out who else they were trying to do this to. Trying to do it to Mike Siegel, even though he's already got a fairly middle of the road.
He's got a name.
Yeah, but he's got. And what I'm saying, when he already has kind of someone from centrist running against him.
Right.
She's getting Shannon Hutchinson. She's getting some bad press right now because of her. Representation in some legal cases and things of that nature.
Right.
But that surprised me, that they are looking there. To also mention Texas 31, it's a pretty crowded race. But, the first person I call is Julie. And I said, get this, can you believe this? And, obviously she was upset. She had her own right to be.
Sure.
But the essence of it came down to this. And there was, we talked about a lot of things, but, she said to me, why do they insist on going the corporate route? I mean, we have proven, Bernie's proven it, Beto's proven it, that you don't need corporate money to run a successful campaign and to get their donations. You just have more work to do. It's harder work. You go out and do the work.
Because they don't want to do the work. They want the oil money.
I think it's more than that.
They want the farming money.
They want it because they don't know any other way.
Well, they would rather lose with a corporatist than win with you.
Well, that I have a lot of evidence to speak to that, actually, Abe, and I'll get to that into my specific race here in a second. My answer to it was this: it's structural. They don't want to do it that way because they can't do it that way.
No, they're not feckless. They're not stupid. These are grown people, and they know that if a guy like you gets into office, if a guy like Julie or a woman like Julie gets into office, if a guy like Mike or whoever, if any real true progressive, the money dries up. They know that. They would rather lose with Hillary Clinton than win with Bernie Sanders, and they've proven that all on down the Steny Hoyer got caught on tape last year with the Levi Tillman, Jason Crow scandal. And it wasn't even and then Nancy Pelosi had nothing else to say but, that's just life. That's
no, you know what she said is it's a bloody business or something to that nature.
Something to that effect.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
And if you listen to that tape, it sounds like the fucking Godfather.
Yeah,
that's the way it is. It's like, I'm sorry. Your campaign seems to be sitting on this thing. It's not good for anybody. It'd be terrible if your campaign fell down some stairs.
It comes down to structures, though, right? They have had a structure in place, a calcified structure in place for 25 years plus. More than that. And I'm saying on the outside, right?
Yeah,
Since say for a quarter century, they've been doing it this way, if not more longer. And that is a revolving door. The donations come in from large donors. Then there you have a bullpen of consultancies that you're expected to hire, and the people who work at the D-Trip revolve through this door between those consultancies and working for the D-Trip. And then, just as Beto O'Rourke made famous, but a lot of people known for a long time, when you actually get in that seat, you're owned, and you're going to You're bought and paid for.
This is why
you're gonna go across the Potomac to that office.
See, but this is why
3 or 4 times a week and make 30 hours worth of calls, and that money's going to go to the DCCC and the DNC.
And then that's how you get your committee ships and everything else. But this is the thing. Getting back to the Ukraine Gate bullshit. This is why this is just a hat trick to distract. And all it's going to do is give a big wet kiss to the orange one, because Russia Gate flamed out in spectacular fashion. And if this was about emoluments, it would have been like a 10-minute more explanation to America on what emoluments is. If it was, and we can't convict him on war crimes, because then we'd have to go after Citizen Obama, Citizen Bush, and Citizen Clinton, and possibly Citizen Carter. Can't do that because that's a flat-out indictment. And we are so calcified as a country.
Well, I haven't seen The Hague exactly, creating any, war crimes tribunals.
Well, they should goddamn well better. I mean, listen, like we just overthrew Bolivia for the fuck of it, right? Oh. And I was at a party last weekend, and this guy with a straight face tells me, well, he was in there for 14 years. That's an awful long time. I go, okay, so Angela Merkel was in there for 15 years. Let's overthrow Germany. But we don't overthrow white NATO nations. We only overthrow black and brown nations that have a shit ton of resources that we can steal at nothing and have their people work for 15 cents a day, no bathroom breaks.
Only for the pure sport of it, I'm going to mention the fact
you got a bunch of Harvard and
that Evo Morales did break his own vow to not run for a 4th term.
Oh, God forbid.
But, I mean, he did so. I mean, that there was a constitutional referendum that he lost to allow him to run for the 3rd term. Okay. And then the Supreme Court of Bolivia overturned that and said, okay, that he can, mainly because the law was written during his 1st term, right? So they said, okay, well, because your 1st term doesn't count in that case, you run for your 3rd. And then he vowed to not run for a 4th, and he did.
And to be fair, we did that with Truman. Because we came up with the 2-term. Hang on, we came up.
Okay.
Yeah, we came up with the 2 terms because the Republicans freaked out that FDR had 4 elections, so they came up with this 2-term thing. But Truman took over the presidency 3 months into FDR's thing, so really the 1st term didn't count because he took over in death. So Truman could have run 2 more times if he wanted. But after the 2nd time, he said, "Fuck it, I'm done," and then Eisenhower took over.
Well, I'll just put it this way: you're going to get my wrinkles up, and you're going to get my, me starting to think along authoritarian lines if you start, staying beyond the terms that were agreed with by law.
And that's our business.
And I don't care who
that's
you
our
are.
business why. If they didn't have lithium or natural gas, we wouldn't give a shit.
So
we support 73% of the world's dictators right now with American money.
I won't argue
American
that.
troops. So why is it all of a sudden? And by the way, he won the last election by 10 points. The biggest economic
the previous election.
The biggest economic expansion in modern history in that country. And he took the poverty rate down from 38% to 15%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's give President Morales his due, right? I mean, he came in and he fulfilled a lot of the promises to reach out and do a lot of good work for the poor, and he increased the economy grew.
And he nationalized the resources and had income coming into the country, and he gave jobs that paid well.
So, although we have to say this, that his indigenous base. Some support had been eroding under his indigenous base. He had just slightly above half, a 50.
Fair enough, and that's our business. Why?
Well, I'm only because we're talking about
it. I
know.
That's the United States business to engineer a coup. Why?
I don't know that we engineered it.
Goddamn right we did. So it's got CIA fingerprints all over it.
Okay.
Come on, man. It's the same thing as Venezuela, but Venezuela's flamed out in spectacular fashion.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we couldn't buy the army. If you buy the army, and every coup, you buy the army. Look at Salvador Allende. We bought the army. Pinochet comes in because we bought the army. He kills himself in the presidential palace, blowing his head off on radio, live radio, because we engineered a coup. Patrice Lumumba, we got the army. He's eating his own speech before they execute him.
Pinochet was no innocent.
No, I'm not. You misunderstanding. I didn't say that. We paid the army. That way, we got rid of Allende and put in Pinochet. That's what the CIA does. In Venezuela, we couldn't buy the army. In fact, when Hugo Chavez got kidnapped by the United States, the army saved his ass because we couldn't buy the army. And then he stayed until he died. And then Maduro came in. He couldn't buy the army. That's why that little twerp Juan Guaido. By the way, did you know there was a coup, an attempted coup again this week in Venezuela? Of course he didn't, because like 4 people showed up and nobody gave a fuck. That's why. That's why. That little fucker. Who, by the way, I'm sorry, the new chick, what's her face, Agnes? Dyeing your hair blonde and thinking you're white is no more than me putting feathers up my ass calling myself a chicken.
Yeah.
Seriously. And she says the indigenous people need to go back to wherever the fuck they came from. Fuck you. Seriously.
Abe's getting worked up.
No, man, am I unplugged here? Okay. But honest to God, it's like, but we do this rationalization that we would never dare dream do with a white country. We would never say Angela Merkel is there 15 years. It's been too long.
Well, again, I wouldn't say that, but you're asking, from my opinion and my perspective of that, I'm not trying to, when I'm talking about this, I'm saying these are little observable facts, right?
Yeah, okay.
And so, I don't have any information on the CIA engineering a coup. I do know a couple of things. The international organizations, when they looked at the most recent October.
You mean the OAS?
Yeah.
Our franchise.
Well,
the Organization of American States, the McDonald's of the CIA.
That's one of them.
The Burger King of the. They do what we tell them.
But there are others. There are journalists that have come out and said that there were.
They're against Ecuador. They're against Venezuela. They're against fucking Chile. They're against Argentina. Okay. Seriously.
That's fine. But I mean,
that's fine. It's the truth. The OAS is a fucking franchise of the United States. How can you cite that as a valid study or a report?
It is one of several.
One of several.
But in fact the OAS report that I tried to read earlier was in Spanish, so I had to Google translate it, amongst other things. Well, when something like this happens, I try to dig deep, and I try to look at all the different perspectives.
Sure.
And there were some irregularities. I hate that word, by the way, because it's becoming a weasel word. It's going to be the word that Donald Trump uses when he decides not to leave office next year.
Right. He won't get convicted.
But when you look at specific, no, I think he won't. But I think that's a miscarriage of justice and the ushering in of the official imperial presidency. But we can talk about that as well.
We had that from Bush on. Patriot Acts 1 and 2. You want to talk about this constitutional crisis?
Well, the Patriot Act was a passed law that you can debate whether or not was moral and ethical, but it was passed as a law, and it was it was
an excuse to spy on Americans.
And the FISA courts were passed as legislation,
which is a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
And the violations that were made anyway, there was legal recourse. Not all cases were brought forward. For instance, it still to this day sticks in my craw that there were 4-star generals from the NSA that were perjuring themselves before Congress. Mm-hmm. And the whistleblower in that case, Edward Snowden, is the one that's up on felony charges, and they're not. All he did was prove that they were liars.
Fucking Roger Stone, he lied before Congress. That's his charges. 17 counts of lying before Congress, like those motherfuckers that you just mentioned didn't lie before Congress.
Well, they did, and that upset.
And James Clapper didn't lie before Congress.
No, he did.
And Rob Mueller didn't lie before Congress when he said that there was WMDs in goddamn Iraq. This is what I'm talking about. We are a kangaroo court of we run the world now. The reserve currency, being the dollar, needs to go away so we can't keep pulling this happy horse shit. It really does. Because here's what's going to happen. Trump's not going to get convicted. If you remember anything about your Roman...
He's not, but that's going to be because of partisanship, not because he didn't do anything wrong.
Absolutely. But you know why, though? Because this Ukraine thing is bullshit. He should have been impeached on the emoluments clause. That's like 19 felony counts right there.
Or election finance, paying prostitutes,
prostitutes, his campaign paying for hookers. I mean, there's a million things. A million things that even the most right-wing Christian Trump supporter, Trump humper, would have been all over his ass for. But I
don't think they would care about
anything. They probably wouldn't.
Did.
I know those people too. But I'm simply saying that you want to get everybody and not just some of the buddies. You got to go after something that's real. And this, it's not going to change the single mom who's paying for who's making under $30,000 a year supporting 3 kids who can't get welfare, right? Because Clinton gutted that, and we just carried it through all the other presidents. Obama gutted habeas corpus. He gutted posse comitatus. Those are constitutional crises. This bullshit, this circus that Adam Schiff Show II, is doing again, that's not real, man. And
it's what they got. I mean, but like you said, and we just said not 30 seconds ago, there's a lot more. I am wondering why there aren't more counts. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think what's going to happen is you're going to see the Senate affirm that they don't give a shit.
Right.
And not
a few Democrats. It's going to be some Democrats voting along with
that will
acquittal.
Be interesting. We should put a bet on that.
You know what? I bet you at least 5 Democrats vote for acquittal.
Maybe Joe Manchin. I mean,
Joe Manchin's a cocksucker. I mean, I can't stand Joe. Yeah. By the way, when people say any blue will do, I'm like Joe Manchin?
Right.
And they go, or like Joe Donnelly in Illinois. The guy was running as a fucking Republican. He's like chopping wood and I'm about invading people. I'm like, fuck you. It's like any blue won't do. This is the argument. This is the centrist. You said it a second ago. The centrist. Let's run a centrist because we did that last time. Bang up job last time. You run a centrist. Where did this theory? You know more than me. Where did this myth of the centrist winning? Because Democrats have been losing so goddamn often since like 1995.
Yeah.
So where did this centrist bullshit come from?
What are you talking about? Are you referring specifically to this theory that we need a centrist to win? Because that is bullshit.
Because for every because for every Democrat you lose, you'll get 3 Republicans in Ohio. Chuck Schumer said this shit. You get 3 Republicans in Ohio. You'll get 3 for every Democrat labor guy that you lose, you're going to get a white collar Republican to come along with you. Really? Because when a Republican runs against a Republican, the Republican wins every time. And Hillary Clinton didn't learn that lesson. And this is where I'm talking about the party. They have never had an autopsy. One thing I'll give the GOP credit for, and frame this Kodak moment, one thing I'll give the GOP credit for was in 2012 when Mitt Romney got his ass kicked, which really was no different because Barack Obama is the black Reagan. So who's kidding who? But when Mitt Romney got his ass kicked, they kind of backed off and said, hey, what did we do wrong? Well, maybe we should, be more encouraged. They did all this shit, right?
And then look what they came up with.
And then they farted up this orange hairball.
They did resist him up to the point that they didn't.
Right.
And then once they didn't, they bent over like I've never seen anything in my life.
It was disgusting. It was
incredible.
It was amazing. Like, I'm sorry, you're Ted Cruz. I don't even like my father. If you said I haven't talked to my dad in 20 years. If you said that my dad,
Graham and Sessions are like in a race to see
Graham
be the biggest whore.
Yeah. I don't even talk to my dad. I haven't talked to my dad. Me and my brother haven't talked to my dad in 20 years. I could tell you with a straight face, if you said my dad killed JFK, I'd kick your ass. I'd beat your ass with your own arms. And Ted Cruz was like, your wife's ugly, and your dad killed JFK, and whatever else. It's like, these people are not human. They're not human, and they're not for the good of the people.
They're a cautionary tale about getting in line and not asking questions and not questioning authority and not, but they, at the same time that, when they say Democrats are like herding cats,
GOP is the same way.
The strength on their side seems to be that they can fall in line even behind someone like that. Like
if he lost, they wouldn't have. If he lost, and
Jeb, I find it intriguing.
Let's just say if Jeb Bush got the nomination, right? If Jeb Bush got the nomination, right? If he did, the guy was a total fucking sponge weenie.
He's a douche.
He's a douchebag. But let's just say he got the nomination and he lost the election, right? There's no way those guys would have, lockstep behind Cheeto Jesus. He would have been done. He would have been ostracized for life, right? I mean, so I don't know, but the one thing I want to get back to. What we're seeing now, I don't know how you feel about the future of this country, but I honest to God think we're kind of getting to the tail end. I think Obama was Constantine the First, right?
Something will come of it, but it won't be anything I think that you and I, resembles anything that we would recognize right now.
Era's end.
I do.
We had a good run. Era's end.
I do think so.
Obama was Constantine I.
Yeah.
Trump is Commodus. Okay.
Commodus. Oh, yeah. Okay. I
always say Commodus, but Commodus. Yeah. So after Commodus, you had like a bunch of these 90-day emperors, right? These shitty emperors that came and they stab him in the tub, and because they were awful. Like Commodus was. Commodus, whatever. He would stage these fights in the gladiator ring with guys with helmets on. He'd pretend to kill him, and he'd look like fucking Trump, right? Yeah. And Constantine I was like Obama, shrewd. He's the first guy that made the deal with the Christians, because he realized that if you keep feeding them the lions, they can't pay taxes. So let's get this Catholic Church thing started. Okay, so that was initially a government entity. So you tithe.
It still is.
It still is. You tithe, and then the government gets its take. So Constantine I made his deal and accepted Jesus, and then he died. And then Commodus comes in play. He's a total joke. So they off him. I think he lasted about a year and a half. And then after that, it was like 10 90-day emperors.
Wasn't it Caligula in there somewhere?
That was toward the end when it got really amused ourselves to death. By the way, I read that book.
Oh, you did?
Like twice.
Yeah.
Thank you for that suggestion. Yeah. So it was just like amuse ourselves to death with Caligula and all this shit. And we're getting there. We're getting to where you're going to see the goddamn Republicans last fall voted for 6 Nazis and a dead pimp, right? The HBO pimp guy.
Yeah.
So we're that close to Hector Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho being president of the United States.
No question.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, at least he has electrolytes,
This is true. Yeah. They're electrolytes. But seriously, but we're going to get to that point where in the next 10 years, you won't recognize our electoral process at all.
I mean, the one thing that smacks me when that subject comes up is how it's covered. Almost unconsciously now from the press covers these things as the spectacle that they need to have.
Sure.
And they gauge it and they judge it, and their headlines indicate that this, it wasn't compelling, it wasn't exciting, it wasn't. Who gives a shit if it's exciting? Did he break the law or not? It's not. It doesn't have to be sexy. It has to be the truth.
Right.
But they cover it that way. Mm-hmm. And I think I expressed to you. I may be forgetting, but on my show last time, we had to pull stunts to get any press attention at all.
You guys
on our campaign, we challenged our opponent to a shootout, right? That's the only time we ever got any press.
It got an ink, yeah.
And yet, naively, I went out there as a candidate going, we're going to talk about policy, we're going to talk about policy, and we're going to talk about policy.
I would think that's important.
But it doesn't get the Texas Tribune or anybody else to look at, to look at your. But if you challenge your opponent to a shootout,
right?
All of a sudden, it's compelling, it's interesting, it's going to get clicks.
See, but let me ask you. We still have some time. So here's an example. I about a month ago, Harvard, not exactly a right wing rag, the Harvard School of Political Science put out a little report on the 2016 election, for example. And I knew that Trump ran to the left of Hillary because that was just a fact. He was talking about anti-war, bringing jobs back. And she was like, no, everything's great. And Medicare for all will never come to pass. And everything's super duper. And he's like, no, it ain't. He was lying.
Yeah, he's lying.
He's a fucking prick. But
it's interesting that he's a populist.
Right.
He just happened to be a big fucking liar.
And he spoke to policy, ham-fisted that it was. He spoke to policy 5 times to her. 5-1. Her only real policy was he's a mean, icky person and has no business, and I'm qualified. That was her only deal.
Well, we don't need to relitigate. She ran a shit campaign. I mean, there's no question about
No question. But my point is this, though. When you run on policy, it must – not should. No one gets should. It must be. When you run on policy, it must be the metric people hold people to. In this country, we don't.
Well, this gets back to, are we going to survive? And one of the reasons one of the points not in our favor is that they don't care. Mm-hmm. They don't even care if the law's broken anymore. They're
stealing in
purely
open daylight.
tribal.
They're stealing in broad daylight.
And so,
Bill Barr won't even show up to a goddamn subpoena.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Chelsea Manning's in jail for not answering fucking subpoena.
Oh, I know. I mean, absolutely. I do want to go back to Bolivia for just a second,
please.
I mean, I don't want to be painted as as having, I pointed out the things about Morales that I didn't like, right? Mm-hmm. Now I want to point out the things that lean me towards why I think shenanigans were afoot. I mean, I'm not going to go
Sure.
I'm not going to go as far as you and say that there was a coup. I don't have that information.
When you got the army putting a gun to your head and pulling your comrades out of their house and killing them, or cutting their hair.
That has happened since, and that is what
that happened when he left. That happened like the week before he decided to fucking finally
Everything
resign.
That has happened since has made me lean towards, clearly this was, if this wasn't a coup,
it's Elliot
then
Abrams.
it might as well have been because, and here's the reason. What's the woman who usurped the...
Jeanette Inez.
Inez.
Yeah. By the way, not even constitutionally.
Oh, absolutely.
She's like,
there was no quorum.
Yeah.
First of all, no quorum at all. Right. The Maz didn't even show up because they were afraid to show up.
Right. She had the army.
Yeah. So there was that.
Right.
But then it's all the actions after that. Okay.
Right.
So you don't have constitutional authority to do this because you didn't have a quorum when you voted yourself into that position.
Sure.
That's one. Mm-hmm. But then her first promise, the first words out of her mouth practically of, I'm just going to be here until we can get new elections put together.
Yeah. And then Saddam Hussein, the ghost of Saddam Hussein is 99%. Praise Allah. Yeah.
Immediately starts in as if she and her and pretty much waxed the entire, what we would consider the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Yeah. And just immediately goes to town. Yeah. On a far right killing spree.
She's pulling out the goddamn Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, they're calling themselves a Christian. It's a Christian fascist fucking movement.
So if there was any doubt in my mind, and again, I like to point out, I like to take both sides. I like to look at I like to self-examine. You know that.
I know. Yeah.
What did this side do wrong? But ultimately, all the signs are pointing to that. Regardless of whether you call it a coup or not, they are acting far beyond their writ, far beyond, they have no mandate. No, even if Morales, nothing like this had occurred and it just went through its normal course of events and Morales didn't win by,
absolutely.
They had no mandate. That's one of the things that bothers me the most about the current president, right?
Right.
Beyond the lying, beyond the just amoral behavior, beyond just being a fucking asshole.
Sure.
I mean, just being a dick in general.
No disagreement.
A narcissistic pig.
Yep.
Insecure one too that has to get on Twitter and insult individuals like he's in middle school.
Right.
Okay. Beyond all that, the thing that really bothers me is that there's no humility. And there's no sense that they're acting as if they have a mandate and they do not.
No, they don't.
Right? If you win by a fraction, or if you lose the election, the popular vote by 3 million votes, you don't get to go in and act like
you have a mandate.
You have a mandate. You
don't.
But of course, that's a small sin weighed on everything else. But it really.
It's the challenge of our system, though. People like to think we're a democracy, right? This is the challenge of our system. Okay, we're not a democracy. We're a republic. The word republic is all over the founding documents. The word democracy, not one time. Sure. Not one fucking time. And you know what tells you that? That in the first election of George Washington, you know how many people voted? 6% of the population. You know why? It was rich white guys.
Rich white landowners.
Yeah.
I mean,
and if you were a landowner and you went bankrupt one year because the crops didn't come in, you couldn't vote that year. Get your shit together. 4 years, you can vote again. Yeah. Right? But then blacks, Chinese, Japanese, Indians, women, nobody.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights are a happy accident. I think it was a happy accident. We got lucky that those guys wrote this shit. Because honest to God, they could have just said, no. We got a new king. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss, right? In fact, they were talking about making George Washington a lifetime king. He's like, no. We had a war. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to run twice because, I'm being a gentleman about it. But long story short, those guys wrote that. If they had a crystal ball and they could see 1865, oh, shit, we better put something in there about, he's going to do what? He's going to free fucking slaves? You out of your mind? That's a cash cow. We're not going to get rid of that. 1920. Women are vote. What the fuck are you talking about? They bleed every month, for Christ's sake. They can't vote. They would put that in there. China, the 14th Amendment, they would fly forward into the future like Terminator and kill Lincoln themselves if they saw the 14th Amendment making everybody a citizen, which is what the 14th Amendment did.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like this is where
even corporations, unfortunately,
right? 100%, 100%. So to what you're saying, you are 100% dead accurate. We got it. But here's the thing, though. This prick tore the mask off our civility because and we talked about this last time you were on. Americans went to sleep when Obama came in. They went to sleep, and by 2012, I was losing my fucking mind. He's bombing Syria. I'm arguing with a girlfriend at the time, and she's like, "Oh, you're just being unfair. He would never bomb that hospital. He must have had bad coordinates." I'm sorry. Do you know where we're at now? I mean, he won the Nobel Peace Prize. He won the Nobel Peace Prize, and all of a sudden, he just steams right in and takes the 2 wars that Bush left us with and turns them into 7. Completing Bush's list, by the way. Right? Iraq, Iran, Libya, Syria, Lebanon.
Wait. I missed Iran getting overthrown.
No, not yet. Not yet. I'm sorry. I said Iraq. I meant Iraq.
I said Iran, but I feel compelled to defend Barack Obama's presidency in that regard to some degree. I mean,
Tell me one goddamn reason we went in any of the places he went into that justifies American, like, protecting my rights.
Well, let's not forget. I do think it was somewhat of a stunt, but I think it was kind of an intelligent stunt on his part to go to Congress to ask for authority to go into Syria.
And then they said no.
And they said no.
And then he did it anyway.
Well,
so it's like
certainly much more limited.
I'm gonna go in there.
I mean, it's always I had this problem with my liberal friends when George W. Bush was in office, and I would occasionally kind of put myself in the place of someone who's in a very, very complex position.
Not that complex. He pushed for an illegal war.
Well, that for sure.
He pushed for
I'm not
not
talking about that. Yeah. But I'm talking very specific scenarios where you kind of go. I couldn't think of a worse scenario for a president to have to inherit than the end of the Iraq War and the ultimate, fall of Libya and then Syria.
We caused the fall of Libya. What are you talking about? We let NATO. Sarkozy's on trial next year for taking $50 million from goddamn Gaddafi, and it's a campaign finance felony he's looking at. And then he decides after 2007 he takes money from Gaddafi to go in 2011. 2010 rather, and bomb Libya. The fall of Libya. We fell Libya. Libya was fine.
Well, I mean, Sarkozy wasn't even near as close to him as the Italian. What was his name again?
Berlusconi.
So, but Berlusconi. I mean, but here you're saying, okay, Berlusconi is the Trump of Italy. I mean, so like we.
Yeah, but when you say the fall of Libya,
what are you talking about, Kimosabe?
The United States, us and NATO. When you when you say the fall of Libya, like it was an accident, like they were walking around one day, and they tripped into a hole. No, we fucking killed Libya. We killed Syria. We killed Iraq. I mean, this is the thing. When the Iraq one went down, I'm like, listen, he might be an asshole, but it's none of our business. I'll tell you why. He's the shitty bottle of wine with this big cork on it. And you're going to pull the cork off the shitty bottle of wine and the smell and the soot.
I lost track. You're talking about Gaddafi?
I'm talking about Iraq now.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon. But that same argument, that same failed strategy, that same failed no end game we went into Libya with, so that Hillary Clinton could look tough when she ran for office. That's her whole game plan. And what pissed me off about Benghazi, they went after her. No, they didn't. Why didn't they ask her why we were in Libya in the first place? Fuck Chris Stevens. I'm sorry he's dead, but I don't give a shit. Why don't you ask why we were supplying moderate rebels, which turned out to be ISIS, al-Nusra, and al-Qaeda, hanging out in Idlib, by the way, where Baghdadi just got killed, okay? Why don't we ask Hillary Clinton, what the fuck were we doing in Libya in the first place? How did we get there to enlighten the American people, most of whom didn't even know we were in Libya? I hear liberals all the time go, well, they found nothing in Benghazi. Who gives a shit about Benghazi? Why was an ambassador funneling weapons to moderate rebels in the first place? That violates a shit ton of international law. We have a ton of good laws in the world where if we followed them, not just when we felt like it, the world would be a lot more peaceful. And it only costs $40 billion a year to feed hungry people all over the world.
Right.
$60 billion to house them. But what do? What do? We spend our next defense budget is $1.4 trillion, right? But when you go into like the fall of Libya, you make it sound like the fuck happened in Libya. We overthrew Libya. We fucked with Syria. Those were sovereign states doing fine without us. Oh, but he's a dictator. I don't give a shit if he's a dictator. He could be fucking his own mother 7 times on Sunday. I don't care.
So Western Iraq and Eastern and Northern Syria were by no means sovereign. Okay, and so like when you
who was running Eastern and Northern Syria?
ISIS.
No, that was our fault.
I disagree.
Before 2011,
I was there.
Before 2011,
I was there.
ISIS didn't even exist before Obama. ISIS was after we destroyed Iraq.
ISIS was created in the early days of the invasion of Iraq.
They
didn't call it that at the time. They called it Al Qaeda in Iraq.
The same way we created Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you were there, so walk with me.
Al Qaeda in Iraq became ISIS. It thrived in the lawless regions of Syria, and we didn't do anything. We watched it happen. The atrocities that came out of there are
Legion,
and all on video. And so, and it became a recruitment tool. Not to mention that the unrest that they were creating as they started to spread out into to eastern Iraq or to western Iraq and into eastern Syria, and particularly when the insurrections started happening within Syria proper.
Okay.
All of the refugee flows were being created there are a big part of why we're seeing a rise in the alt-right in Europe right now.
100%. And who? But
right.
see, but you
so it's all I'm getting to is that is a complex scenario.
But dropping 26,000 bombs in 1 year on a country doesn't help them either. Which we did. Obama did that.
Well, he did, but
he dropped more bombs in the Middle East.
I don't know how many he dropped, but I can
fucking tell you. In 2015, they dropped so many bombs he ran out for 2 weeks during Christmas. They ran out.
Not during Christmas.
Yeah, during Christmas. He's calling Raytheon. I need some more bombs.
Right.
Get everybody back from vacation.
Yeah, and then they're like, Merry Christmas.
But this is my point, though. One thing, it seems like, and I know you better than this, it seems like you're ignoring our responsibility in this. We should never. Not only should we not have been in Iraq, we should not have worried about Syria. If the insurrection that was created by us in Iraq, leave the broken eggs alone. We shouldn't have been in the first place. The entire thing was a failed strategy. George Bush was one of the worst presidents ever. Motherfuckers dancing with Ellen at the Super Bowl. We should have his ass in jail. Him and Dick Cheney and John Kerry and Hillary Clinton and Condi Rice, all those people. But we don't do that. We hold military and war crimes to black and brown countries. We never blame France or Belgium.
Right.
It's like this is U.S. hegemony. I punch you in the face. I'm surprised that you don't pay me for it, and even more shocked that you punch back. That's what we do. And when these little Latin American countries, they're in our backyard, the big red dogs in our backyard, it's that shit again.
Right. That goes back to the Monroe Doctrine. But and we have military interventions to go back to the Mexican-American War.
100%.
It's again, trying to put myself in Obama's place. And I'm aware, for instance, that he ramped up the drone strikes.
I know.
But at the same time,
every Tuesday.
Well, I don't.
It was a Tuesday morning kill list. I swear to God.
There was a list. I didn't know it was Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
But I do know that there were additional efforts and additional there were additional mitigating factors that were put into place that weren't there before too. I don't know Barack Obama as individually, but I do know people who do, and I gauge the character of the man positively, and I have an appreciation for the complexities and the level of difficulty decisions are made. And I think he made some big mistakes in Syria. I think he really
made
did.
big mistakes in Syria, Sudan,
and I think
Libya.
That it's really important that we as a country are able to introspect on that,
But we don't.
I'm equally as frustrated with you on that.
Yeah,
There's no question about that.
Yeah.
We don't agree on everything, but we agree on that.
Yeah.
Right? Let's get the facts. Let's look. But before I start in conjecture and before I start labeling everybody a war criminal, I want to see the facts. Earlier I joked with you, I didn't see anything in The Hague, right? There are other institutions that can make these judgments upon us, and they have not. We can talk.
If they did, we wouldn't care anyway.
Well, but it would be important if they did.
Well, it
would be important to me.
We just said fuck all to the Palestinians. Last week, 2 weeks ago, Mike.
Well, again, who's we, Kimosabe? It was a Trump administration that did.
Yeah,
that,
but I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody flooding the Senate and the House with calls.
Or the United Nations is really what I would be looking for. To be trying to at least present a resolution that we'd ultimately veto. But at least they would present that.
Yeah.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
Right.
And lately, it's just been we got to wrap up here in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
But So moving forward, shit, dude. I mean, honestly, I'm not positive, man. Last couple of minutes here. What do you think?
Yeah, no. I mean, everything that I'm seeing is that the American public is further devolving into tribalism. Mm-hmm. That the propaganda network and machines that are in place are working on all too well to either prevent people from even knowing that laws are being broken. Yeah. Or making them not care because they're so caught up emotionally in backing their guy and believing that the other side is so bad that they need to give him whatever power he needs and wants and whatever latitude. And that particularly is dangerous.
You know, it's scary because we're the only country, industrialized country I should say, that suffers from the good guy, bad guy scenario. And so we pick the good guys we like, right? I remember a couple months back when the Kurds happened. I was working the Kurds, and I'm like, oh, shit. And I was in a bar with a couple of friends, this chick that I didn't know and a buddy that I did know. And I said, well, that's interesting. So how do you feel about the Israelis and the Palestinians? And she goes, I don't give a shit about the Israelis and the Pakistanis. I said,
what? I go. Did she say Pakistani?
Yeah. I go, it's Palestinians. She goes, whatever. Awesome. And she's supposed to be a blue liberal here in Austin, right? I run into this shit all the time, in person and online, right? So it's like, this is my frustration, is that we believe in this good guy, bad guy narrative. So like you said, tribalism, our side good, their side bad. Put ear ground, listen, train, come. It's like all this bullshit. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. Your government's lied to you. Your culture's lied to you. Your country is lying to you. Everything you know is wrong. And all you have to do is go somewhere else. I was in the Middle East 30 years ago. I wouldn't go back now. When I was in the West Bank during the first Intifada, cakewalk compared to now. I mean, Israelis are openly fucking shooting guys in the head like while they're lying on the ground after they shot them in the knee. When I was there, they just stopped me and took my shoes and fucked with me for 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No, I think we're coming into a new turning, and we're coming into a new era of instability. And we only have ourselves to blame because 100%. There is clear paths towards enlightened self-interest that we could take, but we're not taking them. We're taking steps away from those things.
You know what's scary, that book?
And, climate change and stuff is just going to exacerbate. The migration flows from the Syrian conflict. You think that was bad, but baby, that ain't nothing.
Nothing. Wait till the coasts start to flood.
Right.
Yeah, and your point, because I don't know when you were on the show last, when you suggested that book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, I read that twice. And what's scary about that book is it was written in 1984.
Right.
And it's like, this is before all the technology that he's talking about the 1984 technology, Atari, and Pac-Man getting our attention. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't know if he's still alive, but if Neil Postman was alive now, or if he's around now writing, I mean, excuse me, like between the cell phones and we're so dialed into everything now. And I mean, I'm talking to my mom on the phone. She recommended, she goes, my neighbor's son got a Ford Escape. You might want to look at that. We're talking on the phone. A Ford Escape ad pops up on my Facebook.
Yeah, I don't know if they're that good, but they're getting that good.
That should scare the fuck out of everybody.
They're getting that good.
They're getting that. You text somebody something.
It's a great front line on this, by the way, on Frontline AI.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It's scary. Well, listen, man, I'm thinking about expanding the show to 2 hours for certain people, and you're one of them.
Well, you know what? You just had me back. I love the banter.
You're great, man.
You put
up with my crap. I love you.
And thank you. I love you too. I mean, it's good to have people that challenge you. It really is.
Well, you can do it without insulting people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like you don't need to say that I'm bald. I already know that I'm bald. It's fine. You don't need to say that you're bald, man. I know that. What does that mean to Syria?
Well, when I insult someone, I just stick to the facts. So,
right. Yeah, I'm bald.
And you are bald.
Yeah, I'm bald as fuck.
But I wouldn't consider that an insult. I think it's a reflection of your masculinity.
I don't need a comb over. Well, guys, listen.
I have one.
Yeah,
I do not want to leave without reiterating the point that there are people that are working very hard at the grassroots level every single day, and I want to point them out. I want to point, not necessarily call them out by name, but like there are people that are working really hard. The thing that does give me hope, even though I'm cynical and I don't see things heading in the right direction, I see a lot of people pushing to try to change that. It's 11th hour. It's high drama.
Yeah.
But don't forget that there are people out there that are working their asses off to try to take, for instance, the Democratic Party back away from corporatism and into something greater. And whether it's a Bernie or Elizabeth Warren and all those folks, we have so much more in common than we do that separates us. Yeah. And we are working towards the same.
What I don't want to have happen is people like you get fucked again, and then get finger wagged that I'm supposed to vote for Warren or Biden or Harris. I'm from California, worst attorney general of my lifetime. Awful. All the shit that Tulsi said didn't even scratch the surface. I could list her sins by rote. Can count on it. And so this is what I don't want to have like in 2016. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going to vote for a pro-fracking, war-mongering corporatist.
Well, that's what's going to happen if we let the corporatist win this primary.
Well, you can't do it. And here's the thing. Here's what you can't do. If they fuck progressives on the primary, you turn them into the Whig Party.
Well,
you don't support them anymore.
I'm just going.
You don't support them. You know what I'm saying?
I'm saying there's not even that much history left to be had if we don't. I'm saying this is it.
Yeah.
And if we give the people of the United States another nose-holding, pick the lesser of two evils candidate, this country's fucked.
Over. 90-day presidents. This guy's Commodus. You got 90-day popes. It's going to be the 90-day pope all over again. And on that note, folks. My guest has been Steve Kling, great guy, friend of the show. Austin, just insider, knows everything about everything that's right and good in this state. We're going to be wrapping up right now. Listen, patreon.com/The Bitter Truth. You can always subscribe and get some fabulous swag. And if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.